Have you been looking for a chironomid larva or bloodworm pattern that you can present using cast and retrieve techniques and suspend underneath an indicator? I think I've got one that might be of interest. Hi everyone, I'm Phil Rowley and welcome to my YouTube channel and the typical clutter that is my fly tying bench. If you've been here before, thanks for dropping by once again. If this is your first time visiting my channel, I provide fly tying and fly fishing video content that I hope makes your next day on the water just that little bit more enjoyable. Today we're tying a simple chironomid larva or bloodworm pattern called the fork-tailed devil. This fly features the Tungsten Head Turner beads. The beauty of these beads is they allow you to present this fly traditionally using a floating line and long leader or a slow sinking line to present this fly horizontally just above the bottom. But if you change how you tie the fly onto your leader from a non-slip loop knot to a clinch or improved clinch knot, you can also suspend this fly with deadly effect below an indicator because it presents the fly horizontally, matching the posture of the natural chironomid larva. Join me at my tying bench and I'll show you how to tie this great little fly. So let's tie a fork-tailed devil, little bloodworm imitation. Into the jaws of the vise I've got a Daiichi 4640 number 12. This is a big one. I would tie these in 12s, 14s, 16s to match whatever size bloodworm you've got. Sometimes it's good to, if they're on 14s, to give them a 12. Make yours stand out a little bit. The key to this fly too is the bead we're going to use. We're going to use a black 7/64 for this one, head turner bead. These are like a teardrop tungsten, and I've positioned it on the vise, sorry, on the hook rather. There's a concave side to the bead, so because I want to hang this under an indicator most often in a horizontal manner to suggest the horizontal nature most bloodworms move and wiggle through the water, I've tied it with the concave side facing forwards in this instance, so when I secure this onto my leader using a clinch knot, it's going to suspend horizontally like a balanced fly. Really handy way to do it. So we're going to then attach some red tying thread directly behind the bead to sort of push it tight against that hook eye, and then build a thread base. Pull down. Keep that thread under tension, snap it forward, and it'll break. Cover that shank with the thread, and then bring it back in open wraps just to move the thread back up near the back of the bead. And where the fly gets its name from is its fork tail, which is made of super floss, stretch floss, span flex, sexy floss, just depending on the manufacturer you use. So I'm just going to take this super floss or stretch floss, place it on the thread. I'm using my forefinger to hold it. I've got roughly equal amounts of the floss on either side of the thread. I'm just going to double it around the thread, pull that up to the top, secure it, and then I'm going to take a couple of wraps to position one length of the floss along the far side of the hook, pull this back around and get this on the near side because I'm going to use the hook shank to split this and help fork the tail to give the fly its name. So this is a very stretchy material, and we're just going to pull on it to reduce bulk. If you let go, that's not the end of the world. Just reposition and grab. And again, I'm just trying to not be aggressive with my thread wraps because I don't want use too much thread tension or apply it too aggressively and have the stretch floss come out of position. I want it down the side so it splits like so. And then all we're going to do is come in and trim this about half the shank length. You can exaggerate a little bit, you can make them small. I like them a little longer just because they jiggle. And just, the natural bloodworm have sort of a little prolegs at the back of the tail, but not prolegs, but just a little split tail, if you will, in their body. We're just exaggerating this so it'll jiggle, a little bit of attractor qualities to it. For the rib on this fly, I'm just going to again advance my tying thread, back up because I want to try and keep a nice smooth profile, is some of this stuff we used to use for chironomids years ago, before newer material sort of moved it to the back, put it on the bench if you will, and didn't let it in the game very much, but this small midge vinyl rib is still an excellent material for chironomid bodies and ribs. V-rib or vinyl rib has a D-shaped profile, meaning it's flat on one side and kind of half round on the other. And it's always a trick to figure out, because we want to tie this in with the round side facing down or the flat side facing up. So when we wrap it up the shank to rib the fly, that nice round side's going to, you know, radiate out, point outwards on the fly. So the way to do it is, because it comes on a spool, it's going to have some memory. So you use that to your advantage. The inside curl here is the flat spot. The outside is the round spot. So it helps you identify, because with my failing eyesight, it's hard to tell which is flat and which is round. So here you can see a little bit of curve. That is the half round or convex side, if you will, and this is the flat side. And I'm just going to now take a pair of flat nose pliers and I'm just going to come in and squish it as flat as I can, just to reduce bulk. And I'm just going to start securing this right along the shank. And once I've got it in, it's got elasticity to it, not as much as the super floss or the stretch floss, but I'm just going to tie that in right along the shank. And then we're going to put the body in. And the body material in this case is just some red holographic mylar. So what we're using the V-rib for is just to knock you could certainly just tie this out of a red holographic mylar too, would be good, but I just like the V-rib to knock it down a little bit so it's not quite as overt. But we're just going to get this tied in. It's nice and flat, just get it on the shank. Secure that right up to the rear of the bead. And then I'm going to I do this with a lot of my chironomid larva and pupa patterns just to build durability in from the inside out, is just put a light little coat of super glue on those thread wraps. And then I'm going to wind this forward, close touching turns, and that super glue is going to bond the underside of this mylar to the shank and start building that durability. I'm still going to add an outer coating to this fly as well to add some shine and even more durability. So we're just going to wind that right up to the back of your head turner bead. Come in, a couple are over the top, a couple of them in front to lock it off. Trim that away. And next we're going to take our vinyl rib or V-rib and just open turns, wind this forward. And again, this helps suggest a little bit of body segmentation, but it's more there just to dull the holographic mylar down a little bit, just to add a little bit of contrast to the fly. So we're just going to tie that off, pull up on it to reduce bulk, and then I'm just going to come in with my tying thread now and build up a little thread shoulder or thorax, spun the thread counterclockwise to flatten the wraps, and just build this up. That's good, you don't have to do too much. And then we're just going to whip finish. Don't need a lot, 2 or 3 turns, 4 turns, not a lot. Get that snugged off. And then all we're going to do is coat the fly. So in this case I'm going to use some of the Solares or Solares Bone Dry and just coat that from one end to the other. Rotate that fly around to make sure I'm getting good coverage all over the fly. You can really see it, hopefully it shows up on camera, but that really magnifies the holographic mylar and makes it pop a little bit. And the beauty of this bone dry is it's thin enough to provide a good thin coating, but it doesn't run all over the place. It kind of holds, and we're just going to come in with our UV light and just rotate that around. And you could tie this fly with a variety of different bead colors. Use black in this case, copper would be good, gold, fluorescent orange, even chartreuse, give it a little bit more of an attractor quality to it. So there you go. finished fork-tailed devil, great little bloodworm pattern. You can tie it with a black bead, a copper bead, a gold bead, hot orange, or chartreuse for a little bit of attraction. Just make sure it's one of these head turner beads, because it allows you with a clinch knot to fish this fly, if you're fishing it under an indicator, to fish it horizontally. If I'm casting and retrieving, I just use a standard loop knot, although you can still use a clinch knot as well, so it tracks back horizontal as well. But add a few of those to your fly box, 12s, 14s, and 16s. So the beauty of these head turner beads is they allow you, if you put that concave side of the bead towards the hook eye, allows you to, by the knot you choose to tie the fly on with, to hang the fly horizontally. So I'm using some Floraflex Strong Tippet here from Rio, great stuff. And I just tied a clinch knot tight to the fly. Don't use a loop knot in this case. Let's stop that from banging around. And you can see I've really, really pulled the knot back to about the 11 o'clock position. If the tippet hanging straight up the hook eye would be noon, vertical, you can see how this fly is going to suspend underneath your indicator horizontally, just like a natural bloodworm. And of course, riding hook point up, it's going to stay out of the weeds and all that other stuff. And just again, an advantage of these head turner beads with a clinch knot, what you can do with them.